Hello and welcome again at Autodrom Most. We are here in the Czech Republic to continue with the 2023 season of the ESET Cup Series, and among that also the brand new Central European Zone Championship of Formula 4 that has already gained and clinched the official Formula 4 Championship status under the FIA. So it is a brand new series that's been growing up nicely. We have got 8 cars on the grid and excited to get way more in the future. There are plans, there are hopes, and we are here to contest another racing weekend in the Czech Republic this time out. We have already got 3 rounds under our belts. We started in Hungary, then went on to race in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, and then at last Slovakia Ring 2 months back. Now we're back with round number 4 out of 6, so we're basically starting the second half of the season. From now we're going still within the Czech Republic to Brno in about a month's time, and then we'll complete the season at the brand new venue in Hungary at the Balaton Park. A little later on this year. Drivers now setting off for the formation lap, 4.2 kilometers, and the fastest of the Formula 4 cars can lap this track around in about a minute and a half, about 1 minute 32, and it is Ethan Ischer on pole position, the driver that also clinched the opening couple of victories in Hungary. He was victorious in both of the races there, but then he scored P5 in the first race in Austria, and then no points in race number 2, 15 and 8 in Slovakia, so it was a little bit more of a low-key round for him there. So he fell down the order in the championship standings. He is now second, Ethan Ischer, 83 points to his name, and he is trailing the new championship leader, Renaud Franco, by 33 points. So that is it is a little bit more than a race victory is worth, but as I already mentioned, we've only done half of the season, so still a lot to play for, and the championship fight is still more than wide open. Renaud Franco at 116 points, Ethan Ischer 83, Michael Sauter at 74, so he still also is in the chance. Basically, mathematically, pretty much all the grid is, but that will, of course, very much depend on who will go racing at each venue. We have got 2 new names on the grid, 2 Czech, therefore local drivers. And we have got Honza Rieger in P7, that's row number 4 of the grid, and alongside him in the colours of Jensa Motorsport, Max Karhan in P8. So row number 1 here at Most, Ethan Ischer, alongside him Michael Sauter, the championship leader, Renaud Franco, only down in P3, so he's facing an uphill fight himself. Alongside him on row number 2, that is Matthias Bjerre Jakobsen. In row number 3, P5, that's the top of the Czech drivers, Mirek Mikeš. Alongside him, Oliver Michel from Hungary, and then Jan Rieger and Max Karhan joining forces basically in row number 4 of the starting grid. Even the new guys getting up to speed nicely, working their way through the practice rounds and practices, and basically gaining experience. This is their first ever weekend, so first ever kilometers for them, and they were gaining pace and improving with every single chance they got to jump in the car and drive, and now it is their first 25 minutes of racing action. Green flag is in the air, so the red lights are now coming on, and as they come off we will be racing, which is happening actually right now. There was a bit of a jump start from Michael Sauter from P2, who's now immediately up into the race lead, but I believe that he moved a little sooner than he should have, and that means that the stewards might have a look into that. We've got a beautiful fight into the opening chicane, and Max Karhan up into 7th. Good start from him. It's Sauter leading the race from the pole sitter Ethan Ischer. Behind them, Renaud Franco fighting out with Mirek Mikeš. Great stuff from Mirek Mikeš as well. He's made up 1 place already. in his Sape Motorsport liveried car. He's dealt with Matthias Bjerre-Jacobsen, who has dropped down to 5th. We have got few drops on the camera, so still the chance of rain is possible. There has been a slight drizzle, but already for a couple of hours, no big rain out of that just yet, but that might simply change any minute. We are through the opening lap of the race with Michael Sauter leading from the winner of the opening 2 races in Hungary, Ethan Ischer, Renaud Frankot in 3rd, and there are the newcomers. This is Max Karhan defending his newly gained 7th place from Honza Rigre. They are having a nice scrap of their own for 7th. And their first racing experience in the single-seaters, having just made a step up from go-karting. This is the junior formula, the sort of, so to say, school formula. Pretty much for all of the drivers, it's their first single-seater experience. And let's not forget, these are youngsters around 15 years of age, pretty much on average, so they would not have had any experience from simply driving a car anyway. I mean, yeah, maybe somewhere on the airfields or whatever, but they don't even have driving licenses yet, these youngsters. But still, they are already very, very fast. Top of the crop from the go-karting world. I actually paid a little visit to Max Karhan. Incidentally, his team's tent is right alongside our commentary van, and they brought along a simulator, of course with the Formula 4 car and Autodrom Most on it, so I had a go, and I need to say, these young guys are incredibly fast. I was trying to keep up. When I got up to speed a little bit, I was sort of hanging up with Max for the first half of the lap, but then the turn 7 came, the fast right-hander, and into the distance he simply disappeared. I have no idea what these youngsters are doing there, but it is nothing else than a terrific job. So Sauter in the lead, but now Ethan Ischer has set the fastest lap of the race, 1:34.4, a tenth faster up on Michael Sauter. I'm still quite curious if anything happens about Michael Sauter, because we saw his start and he did seem to move before the lights went off. Either way, Sauter still leading from Ischer. Frankot 3rd, Mikesh 4th, Jacobsen 5th, Oliver Michel in 6th. And behind them, Max Karhan and Jan Rigre. Still having their fight for P7. You see the cars with the flashing lights indicating the wet weather conditions. Of course, nothing like Formula 1 cars that indicate the energy harvesting through these lights. No hybrid system in the Formula 4s. They are very basic to keep the prices as low as possible for the beginning young drivers. Around the final couple of corners we go again. Sauter leading from Ischer. As I already mentioned, Ethan Ischer, he won the opening couple of races earlier on in Hungary. He was quite dominant that weekend. Then in Austria, it was James Agosi, young American, who scored the double victory, but that was his only weekend he's contested so far in the Central European Formula 4. And then it was the weekend of Renaud Frankot in Slovakia. So far, it's double victories. It must change here at Most, simply because for the first time this year, we're actually doing a trio of races. So 1 today, 2 tomorrow. Then in Brno, it's back down to 2 again. And to top the season off and actually decide the championship, the first complete season of the Central European Formula 4, we will have again a trio of races to contest. Sauter holding on to the race lead. Ethan Ischer staying very close close behind in second, piling on pressure on Sauter. This time around it was Sauter actually setting the fastest lap of 1:34.1. Using as much of the curb as they can to simply use the old racing driver's rule: make your racetrack as straight as possible. Hard under braking, past the 100-meter mark, through the opening chicane. Sauter not really getting away from the rest of the pack, so it remains sort of close together, which is nice to see. And that means that for the second half of the race, it's promising a good fight. We have done first 7 minutes of the race. Still a few drops here and there on the camera lens, but no proper rain. Let me just try and check the weather radar, what that is doing. Whether we have a tangible risk of rain or not today, but of course, depending on which forecast you use, different systems offering different predictions, quite often them being incorrect. So let's just see. Through the opening chicane we go again. Yes, you know, the rain clouds are just passing past Most. And little bits of them hitting the track here and there. So really it's just the edge of the rain cloud arriving, sort of sweeping past the track. Some of it might come, but the chance is marginal. But if it actually comes, it could be rather heavy. So we'll see. So it is passing by, and the only question is whether it is going to cross the track or not. Sauter still leading from Ischer. Renault Frankot in third. Mirek Mikesh in fourth. Mikesh has been improving massively through the season, and he started with low key points positions, but then he worked his way up and went to finish fifth in Slovakia in race number 2, and now he's up to fourth. That would be his personal best ever result in Formula 4, working his way up the ladder and up the ranks. Sauter still just holding on to the race lead. The pressure is on, and Ethan Ischer is really close behind. Maybe he would have actually disappeared into the distance had he made, well, I was going to say slightly better start. His start wasn't bad, but it really seemed that Sauter moved before the lights went out. So still there might be something done about that. This time around it was Ischer setting the fastest lap of the race, 1:33.749. But, mind you, Sauter did only 0.02 of a second slower than Ischer. So they're really, really on par with one another. It's the brand new crop of cars, the Tatus T421. The brand new. Oh, Sauter makes a mistake, exiting the second to last corner, and he dropped the left-hand side wheels onto the gravel. He quickly came back, but that compromised his drive through the final corner and put him a little out of position for the start and finish straight. Even despite that, he remains in the race lead. In the end, that mistake was not as big as Ethan Ischer would have needed to gain any sort of chance to launch an attack into the opening chicane. So the order remains unchanged, but still Ischer really close in second. Through the middle part of the track they go, into the hairpin. Ischer still looking for opportunities here and there, now locking the inside wheel into the right-hander, and away they go again. Seriously, Sauter under large pressure, just hanging on to it. There's Oliver Michel in P6, and then Max Karhan still remaining in 7th. So winning that respective little battle with Jan Rieger. Definitely not a bad race for a debut. And we have just now ticked over to the second half of the race. 12.5 minutes left on the clock. There is Sauter, now probably under the largest pressure yet down the finish straight. The slipstream working, but definitely not as strongly as it may have been. And this is the fight for the race lead. Ischer diving down the inside on Sauter, and he's now taking the lead as we enter the second half of the race. Ethan Ischer back in first position, and away he goes with that. Ethan Ischer fighting it out right on the track, not waiting for any investigation, for any potential penalty. He's done it on the track, and he is now the new race leader. Renault Franco trying to follow suit immediately, and getting all over that rear wing of Michael Sauter's car. So that's a proper fight in the podium places. Mirek Mikuš trying to stay close to them as well, but already having a little bit of a gap in front. This is a really nice little race there. Ischer leading from Sauter, who's now out of position yet again. He was a little wider than he needed to be. But through the S's, it's really hard to overtake. Another wide moment for Sauter. Again, he dropped 2 wheels too wide, kicked up some dust, and lost a little bit of momentum, which might hand another opportunity to one of his rivals. This time it is the championship leader, Renault Franco. Around the final corner they go, onto the start and finish straight, using as much curb as they possibly can. Renault Franco lining up for a move. He had it first hand, like in cinema, a lap before, as he watched his teammate overtake Michael Sauter, and he's now doing exactly the same thing. Down the inside he goes, snatches second from the young Swiss driver, and up into second the Renault Franco goes. So Michael Sauter demoted by 2 places over the final 2 laps, or let's say previous 2 laps. And there we go again around the final 2 corners. Now it is Mirek Mikuš actually staging a fight for his first ever Formula 4 podium. Mirek Mikeš in the hands of Sapper Motorsport. He's fighting for his best ever result in the 2023 Central European Formula 4. As I mentioned, he's been 5th already. Now he's 4th, which on its own would already make for his best result yet. But he's fighting for a podium. This is Oliver Michel down in 6th. But let's see what happens in the fight for 3rd. Because Michael Sauter, having once led the race, as he started to drop down the order, he's still remain under pressure. Michael Sauter trying to defend from Mirek Mikeš. And we need to see that fight for 3rd. That is for podium. There they are. This is the fight for podium. Second placed Renault Franco, the championship leader. Behind him, it is Michael Sauter and then Mirek Mikeš, trying to have a go on his own as well. Around the last couple of corners we go with just under 8 minutes left in the race number 1 out of 3 of the Central European Formula 4. Max Karhan, by the way, doing a good job defending 7th from Jan Rieger. They are around 1 second from one another, so still fighting closely for that place. Just as they now crossed the start and finish line. But there is the fight for podium. Little drops remaining on the camera. Rain still not coming, though. It is a field of 8 drivers, but drivers with really varying experience. For example, the race leader, Ethan Ischer, he did the German and Italian Formula 4 last season. I mean, he did 3 races in the ADAC Formula 4 Germany with that previous generation Tatu's Formula 4 car, the Gen 2. But he also did an entire season of the Italian Championship with the T421. Did 20 races, was 40th overall, but gained valuable experience and is therefore now fighting for the championship title in the Central European Championship. He also did a little bit of Spanish Formula 4 last season, and then Formula Winter Series, yet for 4 further races. And even this year, he's been combining the Central European Championship with Italian F4. So quite a lot of races under his belt already. 50 in total. Now he's entered in his 51st. There is Mirek Mikeš then. it's different because this is his first ever single-seater season. He's not done any other single-seater racing than here. And from that point of view, he's been really doing an impressive job, because in his only 4th round in his life, he's fighting for his first podium together with Michael Sauter. The Swiss driver himself, he's already done 41 races. He has been doing more than the Central European Championship. Last year he did the ADAC Formula 4 Germany. And same he did 2 years back as well. When it then comes to Renault Francot, the Dutch driver, he definitely does not have the same sort of experience as the drivers around him, Ischer and Sauter. He also started his single-seater career with the Central European Formula 4, so he is also debutant, doing extremely well because he's already scored 2 victories and he's actually leading the championship with 2.5 minutes left on the clock. We're now completing the last couple of laps. Ischer in the lead, already by over 4 seconds from Francot. Sauter 3rd, Mikesh 4th, Pierre Jacobsen in 5th from Oliver Michel, Max Karhan and Honza Rieger. Rieger just 0.6 of a second behind Karhan. That is also shaping up to be an interesting fight in the closing stages of the race. We've had nice fights for the race lead earlier on, around about the halfway mark of the race. Ischer 1st, Francot 2nd, Sauter 3rd, Mikesh still following him closely from 4th, but trying to actually find some position or corner where he might actually stage a fight. Now Sauter was a little wider than he needed to be again. Mikesh reeling him in. The tyre deck coming into play as well, as the pace has already dropped a little bit. We are now in high 134s for the race leaders. Well, we did the best laps in around 133s. And there will be penalties, 10-second penalties for cars 6 and 21. That's Michael Sauter, but also Mirek Mikesh. So both of them will be penalized. Sauter presumably for the jump start. We did not see the reason for the penalty for Mirek Mikesh. Maybe the same reason, I don't know. Either way, their respective order will be preserved because they both are going to be penalized. Five seconds left, which means that this is the final lap of the race. And we're waiting for Ethan Ischer. There he goes. He started the season with a double victory in Hungary. Then his performances dropped a little, but he's now back on it. At Most, Ethan Ischer scoring his 3rd win of the season and relaunching himself into the title fight with Renault Francot, who comes home 2nd. Michael Sauter in 3rd from Mirek Mikesh, but they both are going to be penalized, and they will both see 10 seconds added to their race times. Matthias Bjerre-Jacobsen in 5th, and that will make it 3rd. When the penalties apply, Oliver Michel, there he is in P6. And then in the end, there was a switch of positions between Rieger and Karahan. Honza Rieger finally finding the better of Max Karahan and demoting him back to P8 where he started. So Karahan was P7 in P7 all through the race, but then the final laps changed the order back. Even though this was their first racing, well, despite that, this was their first racing experience, and hats off to their performance. Anyway, good laps, good lap times, good pace all through the race, being consistent, and this speed will come with every single further round. Ethan Ischer victorious from Renault Frankfurt, but when the penalty applies, we will see Matthias Bjerre-Jacobsen up in third, then Sauter in fourth, Mikesh in that respect then equaling his best result of fifth when the penalty applies. We will then have Oliver Michel in sixth, Jan Rieger in seventh, and Max Karahan in eighth. So that was the first of the trio of the Central European Formula 4 races of the fourth round in this championship. 4 out of 6 cars getting back into the pit lane, and that will be it for this race. But we will of course keep going with the Saturday program here at Most. We still have 2 more races coming up. The next one, Renault Clio Cup race, in about sort of 20-ish minutes, and after that we'll take a little longer break, and we will then come back with the hour-long endurance race to top off the Saturday program here at Most. So make sure that you join us back with Clio Cup racing and endurance racing a little later on. For now, with the graphic results of this race, it is a very warm goodbye.